I'm Joey from the Game Jar, and I'm here with Iain, associate producer of Grid 2, and Gehan, who is the senior game designer from Grid 2. So first of all, there's been kind of a pretty big gap between Grid 1 and Grid 2. Kind of what's the wait been? Is it just that's how you wanted it to be, or was there community pressure? Or
it's a lot of different things, really. I think now the time is right. I think the other games that are also available at the moment are allowing us a good place for Grid to be released. It's giving us it's essentially good timing for us to do it summer next year. But it's also to do with the fact that early on in the development we started, really setting quite high goals for ourselves and what we wanted to do. We wanted to do the first game justice. And from a technical point of view, we kind of felt like those things were achievable, but not necessarily achievable on the consoles. We needed to make optimizations, we needed to do a lot of research and hard work to be able to achieve what we want to achieve. So a lot of that stuff's coming through, and we're actually now in a position to be able to do the things that we wanted to do at the start. So really, it was the ambition was really high, and we wanted to make sure that we could achieve that. So I mean, we've not been in active development since we finished Grid 1, but we have certainly been talking about what Grid 2 needs to be, and then somewhere in between sort of 4 years and right where we are now, we started development on it again. So,
what have you taken from the community feedback, kind of whether it's the car handling, and also looking at other games? Obviously Grid was the first racer to introduce the flashback really properly, so I mean, have you looked at other racers and what you've done since Grid's finished and taken any inspiration from them as well?
I think it's massively important to keep your eye on what everybody else is doing, what the competition is doing, but a big one for us is really just being able to innovate for ourselves. So the two key pillars for Grid, as far as we're concerned, is making sure that race experience is sort of everything that it should be for the player, the most immersive sort of racing experience that you can get, but also the second pillar, I would say, is being able to innovate and make that racing experience fresh. Some of the stuff that we're doing with our online offerings is going to be quite new. We actually sort of just see that as an open book for sort of different ways to play the game. It's offering us the opportunity to give players new opportunities to race in ways that are just not possible offline and in single players. So we definitely want to innovate, and I mean we take inspiration from lots of other games, but I think things like the flashback, which was pretty innovative and caused some waves when we first released it. It was pretty new for the racing genre, and it was quite unique. I think this time around a big goal for us is to do as many other things as possible to innovate and have that same sort of effect on the genre when we release. So we can't talk too much about what the flashback is going to be like when it's implemented in Grid 2, but suffice to say we're going to try and up the game and make it new and cooler.
Obviously I've had a go on it earlier on. It's playing really well at the moment. It's got to be pushing kind of current gen to the max. I mean, how have you kind of got that much out of it so far? I mean,
well, the physics, I'll talk on the physics side of things because I'm the car handling designer. Physics has evolved massively since the first iteration of Grid, and the update rate of the physics underneath is running at 1,000 hertz. And it really allows us to get a lot of the detail out and the feeling through the pad, through the steering wheel. Did you try out on the steering wheel at all?
Yeah, I was trying out on the steering wheel, and I think you noticed with the Mustang, like you used to, when you're playing with a stick, if you go left, right, that's just hard right again, and it will correct itself. Whereas with a wheel, you just notice as soon as you do that, you spin, and it felt like, not that I've really driven a Mustang, but it felt like just a heavy car. So.
Definitely, I mean that's one of the things that we're trying to get out, the whole True Feel system. It's all about hand-picking the cars, really establishing what the characters of those cars are, what the positive points of those characters of those cars are, and drawing that out in the handling of each and every car. And you tried that out on the steering wheel, so the Mustang, you can feel that the engine's massively up front, it's a heavy V8, and you can really correctly the oversteer with the throttle and the steering. You should be able to feel for grip all the way through the steering as well.
Staying on the kind of the car porn aspect of it, I mean, kind of, is there anything that you can talk about? Obviously, you've seen the Mustang. What other kind of cars we got in there? Obviously, Grid spiritually is a kind of touring car. That's where it's kind of come from, and we've not seen any of that yet. Are we able to talk about that? Is there going to be some touring car elements in there as well?
So actually on the show floor today we've got the BAC Mono right down in front next to our F1 2012 a car that's down there as well, and the BAC Mono we've not yet released the asset, but I believe it goes out either tonight or tomorrow, and it's going to be a circuit racing experience. So we're going to be a Red Bull Ring in Austria, and there's going to be some BAC monos on there that are super grip open wheel cars, totally designed for that type of driving. I mean, it's a single seater that's road legal. I mean, it's designed completely to grip the road and give the driver as much feedback from the road as possible. So, I mean, that's sort of something new for us.
Yeah,
Gehan could probably elaborate on the cars a little bit more.
I was just going to say, I mean, a BAC mono is an incredible car. I mean, you got to try the Mustang out on the shop floor today, which is like a heavy V8. As I was saying, the driving experience on a BAC is something completely different. You've got to be quite delicate going into the corners, and it's all about real delicate feel all the way through, because it's a really light car. It's not an awful lot of downforce, but there's a lot of grip. But you've got to be quite careful with the amount of grip. You can actually oversteer it because the engine's in the middle as well. I mean, we really love our cars, and I mean, you can probably tell they're all coming out of me right now. But as I was saying, all the cars are hand-picked, and the BAC monos are quite an exciting new group, because these days you can buy track day specific cars that can go on the road, and we really want to bring that to the front of Grid 2 soon, and get you to feel what it's like on the wheel, get you to feel what it's like in multiplayer and everything else, and it really highlights a whole new aspect for Grid 2.
One thing I noticed when playing at the level we're playing on the show floor, obviously I found myself going off, flying over the edges a lot more, and the scenery, it does just look beautiful. I mean, are there going to be a lot more kind of race tracks as well as those open roads as well?
So yeah, it's kind of a hybrid. It's what Gehan was talking about in terms of so that car is a sort of supercar that's also built for the road, and I think it's the hybrid of the fact that we've got circuits, we've also got city circuits, and then we've got this open road type driving, sort of point-to-point road racing, which is sort of gumball inspired, and it's trying to bring as much variety as possible in the types of racing styles that you're going to have, but making them feel like they're part of the same world, the same sort of career progression, the same world of motorsport that Grid needs to be. So with the street circuits, what we really tried to do is make them every bit as legitimate as the actual real tracks. So when it comes to, because we go out to the locations and we do our reference photography, and we pick out what the best corner sequences are going to be, and then we go back to build them. But it's not just about completely replicating everything that's in the real place. It's also to do with, what does a race day setup look like? What does a tire wall look like? If this was set up legitimately and there was a race taking place in Chicago, what would they have to do to make it a possibility? How would they get the crowd in there, the grandstands? It's trying to make it feel as real and legitimate as possible. And I mean, the same is true of the circuits. So we've handpicked the ones that feel the most legitimate for this type of motorsport. So like I said, Red Bull Ring is one of them. And also, as revealed in our sort of teaser trailer, Yas Marina's in there as well. So obviously some circuits have got some real prestige, mixed in with some sort of fictionalized but real world city circuits.
Yeah, there's 3 different types of tracks that we're talking about. Is quite important from a physics point of view as well. We've got 3 different types of tarmac effectively. I mean, if on a circuit, you could expect it to be really smooth, so you can pick your line and hit that apex really sharp. On something like a point-to-point track like the California coast, it's more of a normal street. So you've got like cobbles. It's a bit more undulated. You've got a bit more the odd pothole here and there that can upset a stiff car or whatever. And the same with like a city track. It looks quite smooth, but actually, those curbs on the edges can be quite, upsetting for the car as well. So you gotta drive with a different mentality on those different circuits.
And all of those surfaces. I mean, as Gehan says, as you expect in Chicago, for example, there's a section which is quite unique because you go across a number of different metal grates. And actually just the sensation of going over the top of those in a race car is really quite impressive when you're driving the car. And that's exactly, I mean, when Gehan mentioned the fact that our refresh rate for the physics is at around 1,000 hertz, I mean, it's in those situations where you could hit something like that or transfer from tarmac onto cobbles and suddenly sort of lose the control that you had. And it's being able to actually take that data and get it to the player and get it fed back to their hands while they play the game that's really important to us.
So have you guys managed to actually get out and do much product testing to actually come back and bring it into the studios to develop, or is it kind of working off a lot of data that you've got?
So, I mean, as Gehan said, if we went completely data-driven, it could be quite a dry experience, but it's about picking the best traits for the cars and really getting across the personality of that vehicle to the player. But actually, what we're doing in the studio at the moment is that Chris Harris from Pistonheads is actually somebody who's going to support the car handling team. Well, he works closely with Gehan now, so I'll let you have a chat.
He's working closely with our team, definitely. Chris Harris has got a wealth of knowledge when it comes to performance cars. I don't know if you ever watch any of his videos on YouTube. He's always going sideways, and that's exactly what our game's all about. He really understands what we're trying to get out of the game, and we really could do with that sort of that range of information that he has on all those cars as well. And I think coming back to the point about 1000 hertz, I mean, you tried it out in the D-Box earlier, didn't you? That sort of level of fine detail is really important to the D-Box because it moves so quickly, and if it didn't have that update rate, it would just be smooth all the time. So you're getting all that information coming directly from the surface materials through the suspension, getting fed right through your bum, basically. So, yeah. Can I say bum?
Flying off the track. But in terms of management in Grid 1, it's nice, simple management, team management style system. We'd like to talk about if that's going to be coming back and any additions to that just yet.
In Grid 2, what we're really focusing on is this idea that you can make your choices as a driver. So you can be taking part in sort of competitions that run, sort of running myself into a corner here because there are things I'm not allowed to speak about. But yeah, so what we want to do is give the player the ability to choose what they do. So as they progress through the career and they begin to race against cars which are that little bit more advanced in terms of performance, we give the player the option of whether or not they want to do a couple more races, get the cash that they need to buy a car that's going to be able to compete, or whether or not they want to take their current car and do some things to modify them and bring them up to the standard that they can drive against these other cars. What we're doing actually is the entry level tier is tier 1 and it goes all the way up to 5. So when you're right on that threshold of 1 to 2, you're going to have to make that kind of call as to whether or not you buy a new car or whether you upgrade the one that you've got so that you can kind of keep up with the competition.
And kind of one thing we haven't seen any mention of yet, Raven West, obviously big team in first grid. Do we know if they're going to be making a comeback at all as a team?
Can't really say too much, to be honest. Just have to wait and see.
That's kind of
mention it though, because we know that a lot of people remember it, and it was a really cool thing from the first one. So yeah, no comment at this stage.
I think that's a great thing about Grid and the fact Grid 2 is now announced. Is the community behind it. Everyone you speak to who loves racing loves Grid, so I'm really looking forward to it coming back. So thank you very much for your time, much appreciated.
Yeah, cheers.
That's fine, and obviously we'll have a written preview up on the site as well. But thank you very much.